As Winston-Salem's #1 celebrity YouTube real estate agent, I love making these videos from time to time to really keep you in the loop as far as what's going on in and around the city. Whether you live here right now or you're thinking about moving here, it's good to have a finger on the pulse on all things Winston-Salem: economic, jobs, housing, etc. I'm Jeff Valentino. I love helping people buy and sell real estate. If that's you, my contact information is below. First thing we're going to talk about is delays, specifically delays with the Beltway project in Winston-Salem. Now, if you're from the area, you know that this has been going on for decades, but the project really picked up momentum in 2016 when a bunch of land and houses were purchased by the state and construction really started getting underway. Well, today I want to let you know that it was just announced that the far western edge of the Beltway, the part that's going to come along just west of Louisville and Clemens, that's going to connect to 420 and Interstate 40, has been delayed. Now they're saying construction isn't even going to start on that portion until about 2030. Now it's going to take a few years after that for completion, so look for completion of the Beltway now sometime in the mid-2030s. The eastern edge of the Beltway is in good shape, it's complete, it's up and running. The northern and northwestern edge are still on track for their completion dates in the mid-2020s, with the biggest portion that's going to connect to 52 on the northern side of Winston-Salem still scheduled to be completed in 2024. But again, the completion of the Beltway in that far western edge, the part where I really tell people a lot, especially if you're thinking about moving to Louisville, Clemens, and places like that, that far western edge has been pushed back for another few years. Some people think this is good news because they don't want more development. Some people think it's bad news. So again, while the Beltway is something to pay attention to if you're thinking about moving to the area, just know that that far western edge has been delayed. Rising construction costs, inflations, you've heard a lot before. We had some of the similar problems with the construction of Innovation Quarter 2 and a lot of other commercial projects around the area. So not a total surprise, but newsworthy nonetheless. Now, on the housing front, if we put up the last 7 days market snapshot, I want you to notice a couple things on here. First, you're going to see new listings are finally beginning to outpace properties going under contract. Now, not by a ton. About 90% of the homes that go on the market go under contract within a week, but we are starting to build inventory. The other thing I want you to notice on here, though, is the number of new listings. Last year, when I did a similar market snapshot, we were seeing 200 and 300 listings in a week time. Now we're under 100. It just points to the continued lack of inventory that I don't think is going to change anytime soon. But buyers, because of interest rates, high prices, everything that you've been seeing in the news, there has been a chunk of those taken out of the market, which has reduced demand. So we're starting to see inventory levels grow slightly. Speaking of inventory, let's talk real quick about new construction homes throughout Forsyth County. Right now, when I pull up all the active listings in Forsyth County, account for almost 1/3 of all active listings. Now, to put this in some context, on typical times, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County typically sees about 10, maybe 12, sometimes up to 15% closings from new construction. So to see this much of the current inventory be in new construction homes points to kind of where that inventory is going to be coming from, not only right now, but I'm predicting for the foreseeable future. If you watch the market updates, we're going to talk about this in a little bit more detail, but you have hedge funds that have bought hundreds and hundreds of houses throughout the area. You have people that have really low interest rates that there's going to be a chunk of those that just aren't going to move. So it's important to know that new construction right now is making up a lot more of the current inventory than it usually is. And if we put up the map, you're going to see where a lot of this is concentrated. Now, Forsyth is, as you can see on the map, is a huge county, but the biggest concentrations of new construction right now in Forsyth County are out in Kernersville, in the southern part of that city. And the other biggest concentration is on the far west side along the edge of Winston-Salem on the western edge, and then also in Louisville and Clemens. So important to know if you're thinking about moving here, this is where a lot of the new development is happening right now. So you can look into those areas a little bit more closely. Also on housing, we talked last year about Winston-Salem's commitment to building more affordable housing units. They had a goal at that time to make more than 750 new affordable housing units over the next few years. Well, good news is they're far outpacing those projections. As a matter of fact, they're on pace to have close to 1,000 by the end of 2024, when this was originally a 7 to 10 year projection. So good news on the affordable housing side in Winston-Salem that there's going to be a lot more of that coming. And now city officials are trying to revise that plan to continue to add more affordable housing units, specifically on the north and northeast side of the city. Moving on to business developments. HondaJet announced the name of its brand new jet. It's going to be called the Echelon. This will be the world's first transcontinental jet, meaning it can fly across the entire country with only a single pilot. HondaJet is accomplishing this with a bunch of new technological innovations, and demand for this jet seems to be really high, with HondaJet getting a lot of really good positive feedback at the announcement as they get ready to ramp up and start production in 2024. This is going to be built at PTI Airport, so HondaJet is going to be expanding there. Now, HondaJet has announced that it's going to add almost 300 jobs with an average salary around $90,000 a year. This is great for the area of PTI. As it continues to grow, it still has hundreds of acres of project-ready land for development. With HondaJet's expansion, Boom Supersonic, and other companies that we talked about that are coming to and expanding around PTI, this is going to be really good for the area in general. And a lot of people that live in Winston-Salem commute to HondaJet and places around PTI for work. From the city itself, it's 20-25 minutes away. Even from Louisville on the far western side, PTI is just about 30-minute commute, so very reasonable for someone to live here and commute to PTI. And on the Winston-Salem side, Winston-Salem has been on quite the roll for the last decade. From the decade of 2010 to 2020, the city added over 2,600 new jobs and had almost $1 billion in investment from companies looking to come to Winston-Salem or expand. From businesses either coming to Winston-Salem or expanding their current business in Winston-Salem, again, over 2,600 jobs and close to $1 billion in investment. I didn't live here during that time. I moved here from the suburbs of Chicago in 2019, but people tell me that you could not recognize the change that happened during that decade. The city really came into its own. It got a ton of new amenities, new developments. Downtown has really rejuvenated in that time, and the vast majority are really happy with what Winston-Salem did during that decade. Well, good news. The current decade, 2020 to 2030, that Winston-Salem was looking at right now, the city is on pace to far surpass that growth that it had in that previous decade. Currently, there are already 25 major projects going on throughout the city with over $700 million in investment. So again, really looking good for this 2020 to 2030 decade for Winston-Salem to continue to prosper and grow. And actually, city business leaders just had a meeting to discuss and plan on how they can keep this momentum going, not only now, but into the future. One of the things I've really grown to like about Winston-Salem is they don't just talk about these things, they hash out the details, they make a plan, and most importantly, they execute on that plan. So I am excited to see what the city does in this next 8 to 10 years. Also in business, Hispanic food manufacturer and distributor Purple Cow has announced that it's going to be relocating its headquarters to Winston-Salem in Whitaker Park. They're doing that with a $50 million investment that's going to add over 200 jobs with an average salary around $70,000 a year. On the innovation side of things, Winston-Salem was again just in the spotlight for its innovation in regenerative medicine. Actually, a bit of trivia for you. Did you know that the world's first lab-grown organ was done in Winston-Salem? If you know what that organ was, comment below. Winner gets coffee on me. But at this spotlight meeting, Winston-Salem doubled down on its commitment to be a leader in regenerative medicine. And I would totally butcher all the things that they have going on because I definitely don't have a medical background. But what I can tell you is they've just added dozens of team members to this group to stay at the forefront of regenerative medicine and keep the city in its firm leadership position in that field. What that means for you and I that might not be in regenerative medicine, this attracts other innovative businesses to Winston-Salem, which brings more high-paying jobs, helps the local economy to grow, and is just generally overall really good for the city. In the arts and innovation video I made a little while back, we talked about other companies that were doing really great innovative stuff here. Not many people watch that. I don't know why. I thought it was pretty good, but anyway. We talked about companies like Pro Kidney that are really breakthrough technology in the treatment of kidney disease. We've talked about Zieg Abel, who's bringing their new headquarters here to Winston-Salem. That's going to bring hundreds of high-paying jobs. All these things work in fashion to really help Winston-Salem stay at the forefront of this idea of being a city of arts and innovation. And speaking of arts, Winston-Salem was just given over $123 million by the state of North Carolina. This is going to go towards arts, entertainment, and sports. So maybe we need to add City of Arts, Entertainment, and Sports to this. But $35 million of that is going to go to Wake Forest University so they can redevelop their land around a legacy stadium. If you've been around there, you know it can use some attention, but they have some really cool plans of what's going to happen there over the next few years. $51 million is going to University of North Carolina School of the Arts. and 37 million of that is going to go to Winston-Salem University. Both of those schools will use that to renovate and expand their performing arts departments and just their performance spaces. You know, in a time where it seems like bureaucracy and red tape rules where nothing gets done, especially where I moved from in Illinois, it is so refreshing to see a city like Winston-Salem that makes a plan, executes its plan, that is responsible with money. I think that's a huge reason why we're seeing such positive things happen, not only in the previous decade, but in this new decade. I'm really excited to see what the city does in the next 5 to 10 years. If you're thinking about buying or selling real estate in the area, I'd love to be a resource for you. You can reach out to me directly at jeff@govalentino.com. Thanks.